I don't even know, my TV is a smart TV, but I have not really.
Labor Day is not this weekend, it's next weekend,
They're
right?
good. They're a lot of
The weekend
fun.
after this one?
This weekend is 23rd, 24th.
Oh, gee.
Yes, sitting is not this weekend. I was sitting at the kitchen table.
Yeah, that's what
I'll be able to go after that. So they did, I'm going, oh my God, look at that, look at all the possibilities, you know?
I'd fallen asleep in a
Watch one
tight
after
chair.
another until it's gone.
Got out and was fussing and wondering.
Here, good for you.
So all of a sudden, like, the lifesaver in my mouth, so I'll be chomping.
I was waiting for it to tick over, but we will get going. I'll call this meeting of the Auburn School Committee to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. And we're back to our full complement. Bob, why don't we start with introductions with you?
Bob Manili, Ward 1.
Brian Belknap, Ward 4.
Faith Fontaine at large.
Bonnie Hayes, Ward 2.
Tom Kendall, Ward 3.
Katie Cronin, Superintendent.
Pat Gaudier at large.
Dan Poisson, Ward 5.
Elfrida Fornia, Mayor's Rep, Ward 4.
Michelle McClellan, Assistant Superintendent.
Adam Hansen, Business Manager.
And communications, has anyone had something they have read, received, or anything they would like to share with the school board? I know Bonnie has something.
I would like to congratulate Edward Little graduate of the high school and EL baseball program, Rick Lashua, who got inducted into the Maine Baseball Hall of Fame last Sunday. And I will be working very hard to see my classmate Jim Chaplin follow suit.
Nice.
Yes,
Good. That's good.
very good. Bonnie?
I have something. I saw that there was an article or there was an announcement on civility and respect, and it was posted by Joe Gray. And it reflected niche, and it ranked us very low, our school system very low. I had the opportunity to talk to the superintendent about it, and she said she'd look at it and talk to them and see what's going on. And I believe you did?
I
Would you
did.
share,
So
please?
I talked to a representative from Niche. I did ask him how they pronounce it. So it's the NICHE group. Yeah, Niche. And so how he explained it is that, and you can look right on the website, there's different percentages that go into making up the grade. So we're a C grade right now, C, I think it was C minus. And so you can look at, 50% is student achievement and that data that comes right off the website. And then there's survey information as well. And so how he explained it to me, because I was saying, well, we have 6 elementary schools that have different academic profiles, but yet they have the same grade. So how does that work? And he said, well, it's not your schools are being graded, it's the schools are being graded compared to all the schools in your state. So your highest achieving schools are going to have a higher grade, and then then you have your B's, and you have your C's and your D's, and it's similar in how you probably rank in your state regarding different data points. So as you know, where we rank with our student achievement is, Cape Elizabeth is going to have a higher grade than Auburn is because of their student achievement and things. So that helped clarify for me how that all works. And then surveys, I asked, well, looking at our surveys, only 5 people have given ratings for our district as a whole. So when you look at the grades, some of that is based on 5 people's opinions. And then if you look at Edward Little High School, there was 116 surveys done, and I asked, well, was that over 1 year? And he said, no, that was over the last 8 years. So there isn't a real high participation in their program. As a matter of fact, he was surprised to hear, he's like, how did you hear about us? And I said, well, our state, some people look at those to see how we're doing as a district. And he said, oh, okay. Because I said, is there a way to improve those grades? You know, if we had more people taking the survey or things like that. And he said, well, if your student achievement is a certain place and your graduation rates and all that, then you may not be able to make a huge impact with your survey results. So, because it's 50% of the total grade. And it's all on website. They have a nice thing on the website. They tell you where they're getting their data. They're telling you what percent goes into those grades. What else? And they also, so how, I said, well, how do I get access to the survey? He said, well, people, they give a $2,000 scholarship, monthly scholarship. I think they draw names or whatever. So you go on and you register, and part of your registration to be considered for the scholarship is to fill out a survey about the school district. And then he said, and also we look at what school are those students going to. And so depending on where the college ranking is of that college that the student is looking at, that also impacts the grade. So if a student who might be going to, you know, so they rank the colleges as well. So depending on which college, where the student's going, so there's a lot of matrix in that he explained to me. So anything else that I shared with you?
No, I guess I found it interesting that there were 5 people that took the survey. And
Right.
what I'm hearing you say, I think, is 5 students.
It's probably students. It's either students that are in high school or students, alumni that might be looking for a scholarship, that you might be in college looking for a scholarship.
So I think that 5 people determines what we look like is kind of rotten. And that's the same way with Zillow. Zillow is
Great school stuff.
is the same thing, is that, so if anybody's.
Well, and it's for the city too. The niche wasn't just schools. It's city, the school, the police department. They do all of them, and I didn't look at the city. I didn't see how many surveys were on the city. I only looked at the school part, but I mean, like Alfreda, you could look to see what they scored.
Oh, yeah.
Auburn and how many
Right.
people weighed in. I don't even know that.
But that's the situation today. Everybody is doing a research, everyone's doing a study. And, you know, I think one of the things that would be proactive for you to do is to take a look, and, you know, when you get 5 people, for example, responding to something, the percentages is like, you know, 20%. For everything, you know, if you separate it out. But if you've got a lot of people participating, then that's more true empirical data.
Right.
So I think that every time some study comes out, especially if it's an unsolicited study and somebody does it and they say, okay, the city is this and the school is that, you know what, I think if it's solicited that we want to have them do the study and we participate in it, fine. But I think that it's kind of going overboard. And probably one of the things to be proactive that you could do is like take on, okay, what's the next study? Like, you know, looking at the newspaper articles, for example, I was going to talk about that. And I was going to say, you know, looking at, you know, racism. Well, I was a French Catholic growing up. I mean, I was bullied. I was different than everybody else. But this is not the route that I took, you know, I mean, or my family took. We all get treated differently. We need to take it on. I know that you're working on that principle of the high school, and it's really important. I think the high school more so, you know, than some of the other grade levels.
Right.
So we need to take a look at that and say, okay, so what is the true outlook? Is it everyone doing this, or is it just a few, or are just a few complaining? But, you know, you can complain for every reason. I mean, everybody is different. So I think that we need to be very cautious, and, you know, I was going to ask you later on when you did your little thing to say, okay, what's your first day of school going to be like in response to these 2 articles that we had from, you know, the 2 newspapers, because people can put whatever spin they want, and you know what? We didn't ask them to do it.
Right, exactly.
So, in essence, you know, that's not fair. I think we need to be fair about this and say, okay, this is how it came about, this is what the results are, and try to work with it, because we want to give everybody a fair break.
Right.
Well, I thank you for following up with it, because when I looked at it, I thought, oh, here we go again. On it. And to me, it gave us a black eye.
Right.
Or a smudge on it, and we don't need that. We are working so hard in this system to do well and to do good.
And there's a lot of research on test scores don't tell the whole story.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
You know, the one test score that they all bring the data from is a test that's done once a year, you know, and so you're right. It doesn't tell all the story, and the biggest story is how are our students doing and their
Right.
growth and what they're doing
Right.
and their daily work. And
Right.
yeah, there's
And
a
I
lot of
think-
data points.
Systematically throughout the year, in the
Exactly.
course of the school board meetings, I think we need to up the amount of times that the reports take place.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are so many of them now, you know, so many of them all over the place.
Yeah.
So people, in order for people to understand, you know, where truly are we, you know?
Yep.
And to add to that, I would say that anybody that decides that they're going to publish a survey like that, the results of the survey, really should pick up the phone and call the superintendent of schools or the assistant superintendent of schools and say, where are my taxpayers' money going? This doesn't make sense to me. Instead of taking it and putting it on a media and blabbing it out to 468 people plus, and it's out there, and people think, oh, gosh.
Right.
You
They
know?
don't know what's behind it.
Right,
Which I
what's
think is your,
behind it.
you know, we don't know what's
Exactly.
behind.
So
Right.
I thank you very
You're
much
welcome.
for following up with that.
Anything else? Any other communications? Pat?
Alfreda brought up the Boston Globe article, and I need to say I was devastated by the article. And I also know from working at the school, from when we started having Somalian and other students from around the world come, that we had a significant amount of training that we went through. And I've been gone for 3 years, so I don't know exactly what's in place, but I think, having talked with Katie and I know Scott, things are in place. I think that we're trying to do the best we can with our kids and give them the best environment they can have from learning. And I mean, in my eyes, racism is not part of what I see as the culture at Edward Little High School. And I'm hoping that the system is taking care of it. In fact, I know they are. And I think the public needs to be aware of that.
And as I noted in my email to all of you, so the public can hear, Steve Wessler will be coming to one of our meetings. So like you said, data, he's been gathering a lot of data to drive the needs that we have. So he welcomes coming to talk to you. As you heard in the article, he was very, also, I think, upset about the article because he said, you know, you are a high school that often is always respond, you know, you're first to say, if we have a problem, we've got to step on, you know, step up what we need to be doing. So he will come, hopefully in September. He has both dates, and he's going to let me know which date works for him. And I know Scott, when he does talk about the grading, he can let you know what he's done around talking at the department heads, though, around the start of the school year. But we're always working on things. And I want to assure you that following policies, investigating things that happen, that's why you have administrators. That's why the board has supported the number of administrators at EL to make sure you have hands on deck, that we have the support we need for our students, and we will continue to do that. But there's always room for improvement. We're always looking at different things that are happening. They collect data. We go over their incident data periodically to say, what are you seeing? And I bet you know one of the big things that was this year was the jewels. That's why you had a big presentation on juuling, because it was a very high incidents recurring that. And we also know we have work around the issues brought up in the article. We're always looking at those different cultural things, but also the LGBTQ plus community. So there's always work to do around learning what's going on. I mean, a lot of what's going on in society and those changes, we have to learn and be able to be proactive and teach our students and our staff about those changes so that we can have safe, respectful environments for all students. So we know they're working hard, and we're going to continue to work hard on this.
And a point you brought up, the jewels. I've been reading lately that Utah, Arizona, and a couple other states are finding that the vaping is causing illness. They're being concerned about even a single use affecting the circulatory system. So there's more data coming out on this that is not particularly favorable. But I'm wondering if there's something, what we might be doing within the high school or the middle school or something to at least keep this information, in the forefront of students so that they can make an intelligent decision.
Definitely.
Anyone else?
If I can make a statement about, just because people brought up the Boston Globe article, I was heartbroken when I read that. My daughter dates a Muslim immigrant, and he's been a part of our family for 2.5 years, and I know Scott has been amazing to him, and when I shared it with my daughter, who's now graduated from Yale, but it was she, being an 18-year-old female, and she was devastated, and she was so angry. I know Khalid went and talked with Mr. Anir because they were so angry that, that's him. And he's never felt more welcome by the students. He transferred to EL, and I have many of my daughter's friends are at my house daily that have never felt that feeling. And I do not by any means want to undergrade or take away the way the person that wrote the article or reflected on the article feels, because I don't know how she feels. But it was heartbreaking to me to say, just like Alfreda said, that's one side of the story. And I don't want people to think that we're a racist school or that people don't feel welcome. I know there's actually a situation when my daughter felt as though she was feeling the same from a particular group of students, and she was being attacked, and she went to administration, and that was handled, and they talked through it. They worked with both sides. But I think the biggest picture is, like Alfreda said, is that that's a couple people's opinions, and there's a bigger picture. I can say with all of my being that I know Scott takes anything serious. Anything, if anybody comes to any of administration and feels as though they're being attacked or they're not safe or they feel like they're being discriminated against because of their race or their religion, that it's not just brushed off like somebody calling you a jerk. I would put my life on it that that's not happening at our school. Does it happen? Yes, it happens at all schools, but I just feel as though we have systems in place we're working through. Changes are hard. We all have to learn new cultures, new religions, new everything for all races, all cultures. So I just publicly want to say that, that was very hard to read.
Anyone else? Very good, moving on. Consent agenda, the approval of tonight's agenda, the approval of our minutes from August 7th, and the certificated nominations. Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Very good, thank you.
Are we finished now, Katie?
Yeah, so I'm pleased to say that all students' programming will be intact starting the school year. So you'll see there'll be we have a first grade opening at Park Avenue. What we've done is looked at, because of special ed, as if you've been reading articles, in addition to special ed has been difficult to fill. And teacher, as we have been warned for many years, a teacher shortage is coming, and we're seeing a great impact on that this year. Not the same number of applicants, getting tougher to find certain positions, special education being one of them. So Ryan Fairchild, the director, and I went over caseload numbers again, and we have made a shift. Park Avenue special ed position teacher went to Sherwood Heights to fill an open special ed position that we could not find candidates for. And the Park Avenue special ed team can meet the needs of their students because their caseload was lower. And so when we looked, what our goal was is make sure everyone's caseloads were pretty similar in respect. And so that teacher, we're very pleased, is moving over to Sherwood Heights, and we did hire a special ed teacher at Sherwood Heights. So all special ed positions are now filled and covered. Those students' IEPs will be ready to go. So what we've done with that special ed opening position at Park Avenue, so remember, I moved a person into the Sherwood Heights position. That opened a position at Park for special ed. But what we've done is we're going to be hiring a first grade teacher because we have a teacher on medical leave. And this will allow this teacher some flexibility as they get well to come back into Park Avenue as a teacher, but not have the same pressure around taking over a classroom. So this was what we think is really good for the staff, for the students, and that decision was yesterday. So this is so you'll see a first grade at Park, but that's because of some redesigning of positions. And so we're really very fortunate. We did new teacher orientation on Monday and Tuesday. We have a great group of people coming in. I tweeted out, we have 3 staff that are returning to us that were teachers. One that went to the Peace Corps and came back. One that worked at Whiting Farm is coming back. And I'm missing the third. Why am I blanking out?
One that was working in another district.
One in another district who is coming back to the school she worked at before. And then we have a couple of parents that are now joining us in the teacher ranks from other districts and other positions. So we're excited about that. A lot of really good veteran teachers with a lot of skills coming in from other districts. And then we have some new teachers as well. So really good group and excited. Excited to be part of the Auburn School Department, so.
Do you have an update on the construction at Park Avenue?
We do have an update, and I was there today touring. It looks great. The teachers are nervous, obviously, the 2 classrooms underneath, but the rooms look really good, and we're confident they were working in the halls. Their stuff is out in the hall, and I said, you're working remotely, and they're really been so positive and understanding. But pretty much the classrooms below will be ready to go first day, so kids will be back in. Upstairs, the new construction, it's all framed in. The cement floor is down. They've sealed up because of weather and rain, making sure we don't have any water leaks. Callahan's been very responsive to our needs, our timeline, so we appreciate that. Teachers that are moving into the new classrooms are working in the art and music classroom temporarily. And they can't wait to get into a new space. And really, Park Avenue allows programs that have been in a deficit space to get back into spaces that are going to be more conducive. So it's just it's very positive and looks good.
What's the timeline?
Well, end of October, end of October.
End of October
Yeah,
for
end of
completion.
October.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, so it looks really good, and we'll have to take you over there.
I've stopped in twice just
Have you
to-
stopped in? Good,
yeah, to
good.
Take a look at it,
Yeah, looks good.
see how it's doing.
Yeah, so we appreciate the staff and teachers really understanding. We know we're cutting it close, but we're going to make it.
Good.
Can I back up a little bit in terms of the special education positions? Is it
Yes.
still that the autism program is?
Oh, that teacher will be on board September 9th. They're coming from you'll be really pleased. The teacher that was hired for that had a program in Oxford Hills for 16 years.
Wow.
Highly successful. She's excited to come join us. She'll be joining us a couple weeks in because of the late hire, which is fine. Walton's done an awesome job having Plan B, which is going to have Julian Close, our BCBA, and Alejandra, can't think of her last name, Rodriguez, the team leader there, working together to cover the students. They have 2 ed techs, so they're going to bring 2 students in first, and then as they hire, they'll bring the 3rd and the 4th. So we really got a top-notch person with a lot of
Good, good.
experience.
Wow,
Yeah, very pleased.
awesome.
You're good.
Great.
I don't see a lot of public participation unless Jim or,
The other thing I'll
Mark
mention,
wants to-
because I'm surprised it
Okay,
hasn't
go
come
for
up, I want to thank Public Works, and I want to tell them, even though, yes, People are saying it was very close to school. They are putting a surface on Auburn Heights. It was today. I saw them in action in the pouring rain. So, yes, so that road by the tennis court will not have to dodge the potholes. You know, they didn't really, they're really doing this because they know it's a high need. And I know we've been getting some feedback around, can't they do the turnaround up at the top front of the school, and could they have done it a different time? I'm just thankful they're doing it, which is awesome, and you know what? They'll get to the turnaround at some point, but they really responded, even though I don't think the city had really necessarily budgeted for it, but they were able to do it and figure it out. And so we want to thank the city, so please
Okay,
share
that's
that
good
with
to know.
them.
I will.
That was really excellent.
Very good. Public participation, no one's jumping to the mic. I think we'll move along. Planning and development, an update on the ELHS grading, and I think that gentleman at the far wall is coming forward.
So this was a request from a couple of you to really understand the process that schools go through. I mean, this is really what school leadership is about. You're always checking and adjusting, you're listening to your different stakeholders, this is what they do on a annual basis. So daily. But especially at the end of the year when you're really looking at how do things work and what do we need to do. So could you just kind of go over where you are with the grading?
Absolutely. First and foremost, I wanted to follow up with Katie and say thank you and our highest appreciation for the city being willing to come in and put that tarring down. That I know it's caused a little bit of disruption, but as I've said, it's a better disruption than the folks at Park Ave who are still trying to sort through construction and will open up later. And my caveat would be, wait till the next couple of years, there will be a lot of disruption going on. So this is minor and we can live with that. So, but seriously, thank you.
Teamwork.
Yeah, teamwork, exactly.
When it comes to scoring and grading, it's been a long and evolving process. We go back over 18 months ago where we were at a place with the task force, and the task force came out of that and said we want the building administrators and schools to determine where, to craft something. So a year ago in the summertime, we crafted a document, vetted it through, and that was all teacher-driven. I was the only administrator that was part of that process. There was about 11 teachers that were involved in that. We had a document for a procedure. We brought that forward and we implemented it to start last school year. As we said, there's constant feedback and checking, adjusting, and clarifying through any type of procedure. And so as we were approaching the end of first semester in January, we started to have a body of data. Now we had some evidence of some things, and so there were some items that were like, is this something that we should tweak now? Is this what should we do? Because there's some things that should be clarified. So we put it out to the staff. I spoke with the department heads. We did some clarifying, making sure that what we thought was going into Power School was going into Power School. We made some clarifications with that, but again, lots of communication with staff. And for you to know, a lot of our processes that we vet through happen with our department heads. So we meet with them either weekly or bi-weekly. We're making some adjustments this year to be more bi-weekly, so we have more individual time with the departments in the off week. But that is a key component to our decision-making process at the high school, is we work with our department heads because they're the conduit of information, bringing it in and taking it out, and they really have varied perspectives on what's working and what's not working in the building. So bring us to January, we were starting to see some trends, but we brought it back to the department heads, and so we put it out to the staff in a survey. Do you want to make any changes at this point, or do you want to wait till the end of the school year? And the consensus from the survey was, let's hold the fort and we'll make some adjustments if we decide at the end of the school year. So we did some clarifying pieces to make sure that the end of first semester grades were actually in place and that it was going to reflect what the teachers wanted it to reflect. And it wasn't any major adjustments, it was all technical on the Power School side. So that brought us to May. In May of this past school year, I discussed with the department heads different strengths, weaknesses, and things to consider with scoring and grading procedures. It was an important discussion as we approached the end of the school year and what that would look like for closing out grades. Again, to make sure that what teachers were putting in is what they wanted to put in, and that there wouldn't be any discrepancies for them. That's also when we led into the conversation of how do we want to go through a process of checking and adjusting. And one of the things that I typically say to them, when we go through a process of checking and adjusting, just by doing that doesn't mean that we need to make any changes. We just want to say that we're going through a process, and if the outcome is the same as what we have, then it is what we have, and that's okay. We've vetted it through, and we are using our process involving people. And if there are changes that need to be made, then that's what we'll do. And we always use the mindset, particularly with scoring and grading, is what is something that we all can live with. Like, heard it said before, a compromise is you get some of what you want and you don't get some of what you want, and it's a sharing component. And so when we went through that process, recognize even back last summer, what is it that we can all live with? So in May, we discussed with the department heads a procedure to review the scoring and grading procedures. Department heads agreed to that process. We agreed to develop a 3-area survey to give to staff as a building block, so we had some data. So we weren't going on just perceptions, but we were able to hear from other colleagues in the buildings what their views were on scoring and grading procedures. The survey focused on 3 key areas, because these were the ones that we had heard throughout the school year that people were grappling with. And those were the category weights, late penalties, and reassessment procedures. So we agreed that our instructional coach would put this together, send it out to staff, and within each of those areas were some clarifying questions. Do you want it changed? Can you live with it? Or you can't live with it? You can't live without it. Like, you're happy, you're unhappy, or you have some suggestions. So we were able to get some suggestions and some clarifying points within that. So that went out at the end of May. So get us to the end of the school year, we had those 3 workshop days, June 19th, June 20th, and June 21st. So having explained this process with the department heads, they agreed upon it. We had sent out the survey with those 3 key areas to focus on. We had a staff meeting in the morning to discuss the process of reviewing the scoring and grading procedures, how they were going to approach that within their departments. Staff broke out into their departments, discussed the 3 key areas and any other points of the scoring document that we used for the year. And then I invited the department heads to come back with, they could come themselves, but I also knew that within each of the departments that there are some other people in the department that may be wanting to be part of the process. So I said, when you go back to your departments, of course you're going to lead this discussion, but I also am a pretty big believer of you have another colleague, your right-hand person, or someone who has a passion for that to be involved in that discussion. Bring them back after you've met as a department. So they met for about an hour, a little less than an hour and a half. We brought them back, the department heads and another teacher from the department. They met with us. We met as a large group in the library to share those department thoughts. Each department highlighted their ideas of change and things to keep on chart paper. So each one of the group had an opportunity to share it with the entire rest of the group. They put their key points up on chart paper. So that not only did we hear it, we also had a visual for that process. It was a very healthy discussion, some things that we hadn't thought of, that other teachers hadn't thought of, that we as administrators hadn't identified as a solution. They identified as solutions, things that they did on their own throughout the school year that were very positive and were very much a reflection of doing what's best for the kiddos. After that, we reconvened a staff meeting. Each department shared their points on the chart paper. Every department had an opportunity to be able to share what they just did in the small group. They shared it in the large group as a staff. We put all of those chart papers out into the hallway. Every staff was provided sticky notes and said, go put your thoughts on any of the points, on any of the other departments that are out there. It wasn't about a vote, it was about, yay, I like this, that's terrible, tell me more about it. They ranged the gamut, like it was anything. Had some like, are we gonna have snacks next time? And I just make that lighthearted. Some were extremely serious, some were full of emotion, and many just, here's an opportunity to get even more information back from the staff. After that, we as admin took all of these charts, worked on them for the next 3.5, 4 hours to try to identify the themes of areas to keep, adjust, and any other thoughts that the staff had brought forward. We compiled and considered all that information to create a document for the procedure. Then on Thursday, we we convened another staff meeting, brought everybody back together, provided them with a hard copy, tried to go through point-by-point explanation of where we were in some of the thought process. Staff grappled with their understanding and how to apply them. There was a lot of misunderstandings, misconceptions. There was there was a lot of emotions when, like I've said many times, teaching is one of the most personal things that are out there, and so the teachers are trying to create personal meaning for themselves, and that elevates emotion, and that's understandable. Staff were trying to talk themselves through. Some were frustrated at what was happening. Some understood and agreed. Again, we're at that compromise place. That occurred, and then from there, we decided that they would go back to their departments, take the document and create meaning for themselves as a teacher and as a department of what was crafted. And that was Thursday. On Friday, I emailed the staff back out to say, I understand that there's still a lot of frustration, there's a lot of emotion with this. What we will do is we will continue to consider feedback, and we'll spend the summer continuing to do that. And so we did a ton of that as an admin group. And so I went even farther, and I invited department heads from the 4 core areas to come meet with us, because now some time had elapsed and staff had an opportunity to have more discussion with themselves and more discussions back with their department heads. So I brought them back in to say, what are the sticking points? What are the points that you can live with? What are the points that, that you're fine with? Are there some things that we're missing? So again, we took some more feedback from those department heads, discussed the areas that they were most troubled with or had more understanding that they wanted from. We continued to review through July, and then this past Monday, we did our annual summer department head day. So the department heads were in, and we went through the document and highlighted the things that we thought, this is what, based on what we're hearing and how people responded, I'm not going to die on that hill, but I will die on this hill, made some more adjustments, vetted it through with the department heads. They had some other adjustments that they wanted to make. I supported that, if that's what's best, because there's other great work that needs to happen. That's what we wanted to do, so the department heads had that, and I said, give me a couple more days to make sure that all the language is there, we're not making any substantive changes. And that I told them that I was going to be coming here to explain this process to you. They understood that, and I said, after we've done this, by all means, go ahead and share that back out with the staff, because I didn't want to be here and have a staff member say, I haven't had a chance to hear this, and now publicly it's out there. So that is going to happen for them in the next couple days. On Monday, when they come in for our first staff meeting, it's like item number 2 to review. With the staff of, this is the document we have. And so that's the process that we've gone through.
How many staff do you have that you have to bring together for consensus?
For consensus? So
when you were doing all this, to give them a perspective of how challenging it is to get 5 people to agree.
Yeah, we're talking about 83 to 85 teaching staff.
Picture trying to get 85 people to, 1, understand everything, 2, have all their feedback. So even your department heads, you have a number of department heads too, so it's not really, even that's a large group.
And we do. We have about 10 departments, but I also include in that process the instructional coach, our librarian, our guidance department, so that all of the areas that are operating in the building are covered.
So just to give you a sense of trying to get everyone's voice heard, it doesn't mean all the voices get what they think is going to be expected. It has to be what they can reach to in consensus around what they're going to put together. So imagine trying to do that in your own workplace when you're trying to get everyone on the same page. So.
And Monday's department, the group was, they were satisfied what we were going to be bringing back. They felt more confident in being able to explain it and implement it.
So you didn't do it in isolation by yourself in your office, it sounds like.
It's very boring in there. No, no.
No, but you took the time, and time. Sometimes it's easier just to say this is the way it's going to be, and taking the time to really listen and go back and go back and go back will pay off in the long run, because everyone will see that there was really thoughtful process.
I recognize that people may have felt frustrated that we weren't moving fast. We were moving diligently at a thoughtful pace.
Right.
But at the same time, we talked earlier about hiring. We put a lot of emphasis on making sure that we're invested in that and not have all of our I's dotted and not have the T's crossed. Because when the school opens, there's going to be just under 1,000 kids there. We need to make sure that we have the staff in place. So we were working parallel. Like we had to invest a lot of time into making sure that we were taking care of our hiring process and continuing to do this and evaluate. And I don't mean it like wah, wah, wah. I'm saying like there's a lot of pieces that are happening in the summertime, and so it may not be visible, but that work is truly happening. And we spent a lot of time reviewing and reflecting on many other procedures that we do through the building and have made some other adjustments. The guys were making adjustments in our staff handbooks again today. We looked at some other student procedures as well as staff procedures, and again vetted that through back with the department heads. Scheduling sequences did much of the, yeah. It's not what you asked for, but there's a lot of that, and I highlight that just simply because I think for some people they didn't see it visibly and didn't think that this work was happening, and it was.
Will this finally result in a written document that can be shared with us?
Yes, they're going to have their staff meeting. They're going to post it. They posted it on their website last year. It will be posted. Yeah.
Thank you.
Could I make a couple comments and questions?
Pat has.
Okay, first of all, I appreciate your honesty because I know there was frustration, and I really, truly appreciate your honesty in tackling it and giving people time to think, to reassess, to reconfigure. And what you've explained right now is process, and I'm really big on process. It doesn't happen overnight, and then you have to process at very many different levels. And that's what you've been doing. And so you've given it a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of thought, and I have to thank you for that. This is really heartwarming to me. It could be that some of this stuff is still going to continue to need to be tweaked, and I know that you're going to work on that because that's the kind of guy you are, and I truly appreciate that. I like your three-method, assessment, change it, live with it, or live without it. So to me, don't have 5 or 7 scales, just 3, like, don't like, maybe not, just make it simple. I would like to know, what your strategy would be for assessing the efficacy of this new grading system. Do you have planned what will happen, for you to assess how it's going, and do you have a timeline for that? That plus parents, how are you going to, share this with parents? And what will that first school day look like with all these changes, with the newcomers coming in and the new freshman batch coming in? And I know these are 3 loaded questions, but what are you thinking about that? And
Well, if I'm hearing correctly, the first piece, yes, we will get this out. We'll get it on the website. We have another follow-up letter because we have a couple other procedures that we wanted to get the school year started that we wanted to follow up with families. Open houses are a wonderful opportunity for us to get some feedback from parents. There won't be a lot of data in there for them to really have some meaning. We've had some discussions of setting up some other parent nights to do some other components, whether we're talking about juuling or post-secondary planning or scoring and grading, almost like some speed dating avenues to bring some parents in for some different topics rather than it be sit and get information and talk to teachers. How can we be a little bit proactive there? So that would be another tool. We haven't put that in motion yet, but that has definitely been a point of conversation. We have evolved over the last 3 years and positioned ourselves to really start diving deeper and deeper into our data. And we have invested a lot of time in the last 3 weeks of not only how do we use that data, but how do we get everybody incorporated into being involved in that data and have meaning for that data. And data can be anything and everything, as we know, so that we're being systematic and not anecdotal about our approaches to things. So when you ask how are we going to evaluate that, I would first and foremost, I would bring teachers to the table and say, if this is our task, how are we going to evaluate if this is working or not working? Because they're the ones that live it each and every single day. Because there's more to this than just entering numbers in. It goes, like I said, we're talking about the reassessment procedures. So how are those reassessment procedures? Are we getting the outcomes that they're looking for, which is that it's an area to be able to demonstrate that students are learning? The trick with any kind of number is that you're balancing student learning with accuracy and timeliness. And so when those get blended together, it becomes complex. And so when you have a complex situation, it's not going to be solved with one thing, but we work really hard to simplify it by chunking it up. It's not one program, it's not one person when it's a complex situation like that. So what we'll do is look to simplify and go into chunks, and I would start with the teachers developing a process of, is this working, not working, where are the struggles? Will we involve parents? Absolutely, because some of our reflections this summer were how do we get more input? So do we start doing more Twitter surveys? Do we start doing more Facebook surveys? Do we start having them come in for a parent night just to do surveys and offer feedback? I don't have the only answer to that, but that's going to be something that we'll talk about in department heads. As far as gathering information from scoring and grading, that's first, right? Second, what are we going to do in terms of opening day? Opening day, our student leader group, they've met twice.
The freshmen come in first.
Yep, the freshmen.
When you said newcomer, do you mean the freshmen coming in?
No, I mean, no, when they come into school, all of them.
Okay, because we have freshmen first. and then they all come
On
in.
Wednesday, the
So that's what
28th,
he's
it will all be all freshmen led by our student leadership group. They have another meeting Friday so that they all identify all of their tasks. It's a tradition that we've been following. The feedback has been very positive. It helps the freshmen get assimilated into the building. It's freshmen only with about 80 student leaders, the other students in the sophomores, juniors, and seniors that have been part of this group. Will lead them through a bunch of activities with their mentor teachers all day long, a lot of understanding the traditions, a lot of understanding of where their classes are. Have an opportunity to meet some of those teachers. I'll also have some time in the morning for parents if they want to come and stay. It's not a perfect time because it's about 8:30 in the morning. Keep our investment on the kids, make sure that they're off and running. They have an opportunity to stay and get some names with faces and try to identify the process of who do I talk to for this, who do I talk to for that. This is where the nurse is, this is when you have medication, this is how you do dismissals. The kids may know it, but now it's a different building and it's some different setups. And just more than anything, try to get faces with names for families, so that happens. And then on Thursday, what we do is we scaffold them. We do, I'll meet with each class. I'll do another quick little meeting. The freshmen will be a lot quicker because they've already had a day under their belt. But then I meet with the sophomore class, junior class, and senior class to highlight any significant changes, points of emphasis, a welcome back more than anything. And let them know of any kind of scheduling things that they should know in the next week, what are means of communication with them, but more than anything, here we are, we're back, and I task them with, you are now sophomores, juniors, and seniors, you lead these freshmen and teach them our traditions, and you teach them our rules and regulations and procedures, like student to student is the most powerful voice, and so it's kind of a motivating kind of piece as well as an opportunity for them they all want to be together, they want to see each other, and so I usually meet with them for about a half hour, and like I said, typically it's highlighting some significant things for them.
Thank you so much. Mr. Fournier would be very proud of you right now.
Did I cover them all?
That's it?
Okay.
You did, thorough.
I just had a question about the turnaround time for teachers between Monday and Wednesday.
Yeah, and so as we talked on Monday, I said, I wouldn't call it leak it, but you can share this with your staff. We put it in a department head Google Drive, and I said, if you guys want to go and share that, just recognize that we're going to adjust these couple things, which were the ones that they wanted tweaked. I said, we're not talking monumental. I don't even know if we're going to reposition it from a visual standpoint, but if you want to go ahead and share it, you can. Recognize that it's not all, I'm not pulling a fast one and saying it's going to be this and it turns out to be that. But I think some of them did already share it because I agree. I wanted them to have some time to see that.
Good, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you, Scott.
Very good, Scott.
Yes, a lot of work.
I just want to say thank you for the words. This has been a challenging 3 or 4 weeks. Every kid's perspective is important. What we do to make sure that kids feel safe at our building is incredibly important. And I welcome any of you to come and see the things we do. You'll hear more about the things that we do, and they've been ongoing. They've been evolving. We will continue to do that because that's what we do with anything. We check, we adjust, we work. We invest a lot into the conditions of learning for students because when we know that they feel good about being at school, they do well at school. And I thank you.
Thank you very much. You don't have a summer, I understand that. Thank you.
But he does feel the heat. All right, business. The city charter charges us with having a ethics committee, city's ethics committee, and on that, we are to appoint a member of the school board as well as members of the city council. I need both a full member and an alternate member. At this point, I'm going to ask first for volunteers. If there's anyone who desires to serve on this committee, to raise their hand.
I desire.
Oh, good. Bonnie's on. That's good. Bonnie will be the full member. That's right. If anyone is an alternate member,
I could be until we see what happens.
sure, if you, can you be as a city
Well, it
council?
depends. I'm not representing the city council, I'm representing the school
I-
committee.
Yeah,
She can because she's considered a member now.
yeah, but, and you're not on it from the city council side already.
No?
No. So it's somebody can serve.
See, on
when
the
Bon-
city
when-
council, on the city council side, it's different than how you're doing that right
Yeah.
here. Here you appoint. On the city council side, people have to apply, and then the city council selects. So it's, I don't know why it's that way, but that's the way the
That's how it's
ordinance.
written, right.
That's how the ordinance
written, yeah.
goes.
So this
So-
person, the alternative would, when Bonnie can't make the
Can't make it,
meeting,
the
you're
alternate
going in her
goes.
place.
Yeah,
basically,
and then until, whatever happens next,
With the,
know.
with the
Sure.
election, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm happy to be an alternative too, so whatever, however you guys want to decide.
Were you going to run?
run for city
Are you
council?
running for city council again?
No,
Then you'd, I'm trying to think. It's
When does
gotta
it
be a member of
start?
the
Probably,
school board,
probably
so-
not, yeah, so maybe you should
Probably
do
Faith.
somebody who's running.
Yeah, someone
that-
who's at least
yeah.
running, so that it's not just a 3-month.
yeah, well, the thing, it
If the mayor wins, he may appoint her to be the,
But if she's not running.
She's not running for city council.
She can't be the city council rep.
no, but she could be, she doesn't have to be on the
She could be the
city
city,
council.
yeah, she
I
could be the
could-
citizen.
Be
I
the
could be a
mayor's
citizen- I could be a
representative, whether
citizen
she's on the
rep.
Definitely.
council
And
or
if I'm a
not.
citizen rep, then
Definitely
I
Bob.
can
Yeah,
be.
she could be
right.
that, but we need to get school committee representation. At this point, I think I have Bonnie as the full member and Faith agreeing to be the alternate. Do I have anyone else expressing great desire to do this? I would
Just,
entertain, yes, Bonnie?
just as a point of interest,
But-
I think that what Elfrida said, Bob, was that the city council has to apply and be chosen by the city council
Right,
group that chooses committee members. It's not a mayor's appointee.
no,
Right,
it's
correct.
not.
But
And so
Bob's
for
right
that-
that she can apply to be
Yes.
the citizen.
Citizens
Yes.
on it.
Correct.
Right.
Through the
And
same
then-
process, right?
Right, pardon me?
Through the same process as any other committee.
Right, exactly. And that, at the same level, I mean, everyone here is running for reelection again, so this is the same thing in my status. We're all in the same place.
Oh, yeah, we don't know who's going to be back.
Right.
You're absolutely correct.
All right, I'd accept a
That's
motion to
good.
approve the nomination of Bonnie as our full member and Faith as the alternate member.
So moved.
Second,
Second,
further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Very good, thank you.
Okay, we'll let Sue know.
Yeah.
what happens.
Put it on the record. So we've fulfilled our charter responsibility, which is good. Finance report for June, who's got it?
There's a lot to cover tonight in finance.
because it's the end of the
Oh,
year.
but we're going to make it short. We're
Yeah,
gonna be
we are going to be
I like that.
We are having, our budget, our 2018 budget is over. We are looking at our finances. We're waiting for the audit to be done and completed before we report back to you what's actually happening for the end of the year of 2018.
Isn't that you're doing last year's or not this year's?
2019.
You're talking about
19,
FY
I'm sorry, 19, yeah,
That's
I'm
my
sorry,
question.
yeah.
Behind a year.
Right. Well, yes, right. So we're waiting for that, sorry, Pat, we're waiting for that to be completed on it before we give you any final figures on that, on it. We have the school revolving renovation fund. That's a fund that the state gives out that we can apply for to do some construction. It's interest-free or low interest, which is it?
It's partial loan forgiveness and then interest-free on the portion that you do have to repay. So it's the best deal going.
And Adam's prepared to talk about the 3 projects.
Okay, so I won't talk about the 3
No,
projects?
you can have him do it now if you want.
Okay.
I
3
can do it now
projects,
since
Adam.
we're on the topic. So the state recently announced that there is funding in this school revolving renovation fund for priority 1 and 2 projects, which are school safety is one of the priorities. It does not include additions to buildings. I did ask that. So in meeting with our facilities director and Billy Hunter and Mel Cole, who works with us as our building consultant, and with Katie, the 3 things that we've identified at this point that we're looking into are the Franklin elevator and bathroom project that we have currently on our CIP list. We think it's perfect for this.
Exactly.
We've also looked at making the RETC building handicap accessible. They do not have an elevator. They're our only school that does not, so we're looking at that. And we are also looking at redesigning the entrance to the middle school to move the front office to make that a lot more in compliance with current standards for safety and security. So those are the 3 things. We do have to work with an architect to develop a preliminary budget, which is part of the application. So we're doing that. We're working with both Harriman as well as Stephen Blatt, each on different projects. And those applications are due September 30th. So probably on the September 18th meeting, we'll be bringing before you the final project budgets, which applications we're recommending that we move forward with, and be looking for your vote to approve moving ahead with those. And hopefully at that time we'll have an idea what the cost will be and then what percentage of that we would have to repay. So
In our
that's where we're
finance
at.
committee meeting, we talked about making our buildings secure with this, as much as we could use with this. And they were all the front entrances of our buildings, as you entered, needed to be worked on. So at least we're starting with the middle school.
And the other schools, there are things we can do that are certainly much less costly, that we're looking at the sliding windows and just making all of those things more secure. And so that's an ongoing discussion and an ongoing process. We continue to work with our safety consultant, Scott Parker, for recommendations. And we do still have some CIP money that was approved last year for safety. We are, just this week, we're having some window tint, some one-way window tint put in some of the schools. So we're going to continue to do things like that as he works with us to recommend them, to just always improve our safety and security wherever we can.
And that's not to say that when we're building our new high school, that safety is very important to us. So we're building a safe high school as much as we possibly can in this day and age. We talked about CIP projects. You heard that Park Avenue will be done on October 26th. Hopefully, we'll keep our fingers crossed on that. Walton's got some new fencing around the stadium. It will have some new bleachers put in, not to be completed in time for the first game, but probably the end of September, the 1st of October, we'll have bleachers. There will not be room for everybody to sit. This is a temporary model that we're doing, yes. So we will have about 500.
A little over 500 will be the capacity on the home side now.
The press box will be gone, but we have plans for the press box, or a modified use of a press box, of how we're going to do it. Stay tuned for that. And then our big thing,
The cafeteria.
the cafeteria at
Yes,
Walton.
want to
Right.
mention that.
Oh, yes. The-
Natural light.
Right, the cafeteria. at
Yeah, I
Walton.
would encourage all of you to swing by Walton and see not only the new fence and some newly renovated bathrooms, but the
Bathrooms.
cafeteria looks like a completely different space. They have put the windows back in, they've lowered the ceiling, and it just looks incredible in there. As well as, there's been a few new windows put in the hallway right outside, so it's going to be a whole different experience for the kids and the staff in there this year. So we're very excited about that.
A little natural light is wonderful. And then our big discussion that we had is our hot lunch program. Faith?
Yes, so as we've talked many times about ways we've tried to collect the unpaid lunch balances, we had discussed with you about the collection agency that the city uses, and we did speak with them, and this is too small of a project for them to take on. So we are looking into some other options to get back some of those funds. We have decided that we're going to raise the school lunch at the elementary schools from $1.80 to $2.50, so 70 cents. They were last raised in 2018 from 170 to 180. But keeping in mind, Adam brought to our attention what our surrounding area schools are at for hot lunch. Do we have handouts, or no, I can just say it? So just so everybody's aware that the elementary rate at Turner is $2.50, Poland is $2.50, Lisbon's $2.75, Gray is $2.50, Oxford's $2.50, bringing an average lunch of the surrounding areas to $2.55, and we are at $1.80. So we have decided that starting October 1st, and a notice will go home to all parents, that our elementary school lunch will be raised to $2.50, and at the high school, it's going to go from $2.50 to $3. And again, the surrounding towns, the average is $2.90, but some of them range from $3.25, $2.75, $3, $2.75, $2.75. So we've definitely looked at the numbers, and we're at a point where we do have to come up to that amount. We talked about coming up 10 cents like we have been in the past, but we just feel as though then it's going to say we keep on raising it. So we're hoping to raise it to $2.50, the 70 cents, and stay there for a while.
So do you want to, so I'll add to what you've said. The reason we have to do it, we're in a deficit. So the school department has always been committed that our food service program is an enterprise program, which means it has to sustain itself. Okay? So we don't put any money in our general fund towards food service, which we're going to have to discuss next budget, whether that can continue having us do that. So they are running in about a $50,000 deficit right now. And I think part of it is we haven't kept up with the economy of scale around the prices. I think we've really tried to have, our community saying, can they afford this, can they afford this? Well, what has happened now is we have a huge gap. And so we're seeing our community, our surrounding towns can afford around $2.50, so we're going to go there because that will meet our deficit. We hope with that increase that we will be out in the black, but we have some things we need to talk at budget time around how to help balance that budget. This does not impact the schools that have the universal breakfast lunch. Obviously they don't have an increase because they don't pay, but the increase, the deficit is not because of that. So the schools that are paying are not making up for the schools that are not paying. So we wanted to be crystal clear about that there's no relation there, so that people don't feel like, well, if I'm a Fairview parent, I'm carrying the weight of the district. No, you're paying for your costs relative to the meals that are being served. So that's how it's working, and we know we're going to get plenty of information out to parents, warning them that this is coming at those schools, and we'll go from there. We'll update you on, because with the new rules now, we have to serve lunch, and whether you're paying or not, even if you are supposed to be paying. So we'll see if there's any impact, because people are expecting there may be impact with that. So we'll keep you up to date as to how we're doing. Bonnie made a good point. When we raised our childcare prices significantly, everyone was fearful we would lose students for childcare, and we did not. Matter of fact, I think she's at capacity in all her sites right now. So we know there's going to be an adjustment for our families, and we understand that, and we just have to make our budget work.
And I'll just add one more thing to all of that, which is, we didn't just jump to these numbers just because everyone else is doing it.
Right, that's a good point.
Paula, the nutrition director, and Jackie in the business office, and I have spent a lot of time over the last month analyzing the numbers and where do we need to go to break even. And this is honestly where we need to go. So
Good
it
point.
was the
Thank you
decision
for
we
clarifying
felt
that.
we needed to
Yeah.
do this, and we also feel it's totally in line with what others are doing. So we felt it was the right thing to do at this point.
And we're going to continue to find ways to, because we know there's families that qualify for free and reduced lunch, but they're not filling out the form, so unfortunately we're stuck. So we're trying to figure out ways that we can get more forms filled out, whether it's when a new student is registered, that's a required form that they have to fill it out, and if they do qualify, then great, they don't have to worry about the increase, because we don't want anybody to feel as though this is an increase that they can't handle, and that's another reason we didn't say this first day of school. We want to give parents time to fill out the form, or time to, figure out, and no, we don't want to just throw this on somebody's plate next week.
Now, this doesn't make the $22,000 deficit that we have for non-payers for hot lunch go away,
No.
right? We still have that.
It's apt to escalate.
No,
What?
I don't think it's that high. I think it's 8,000.
Oh, whatever it is.
It's 8,000 something.
Right. It was
No,
22,000,
this
right.
is actually a totally separate issue from that.
Right.
Because if
You're right, Adam, I'm sorry.
if those balances never get paid, that comes back to the general fund. So that's sort of a different topic. But the rate increases, you're right, Bonnie, it doesn't help with that. What it does is help balance the books of
Right.
the nutrition program to be self-sustaining.
Alfreda?
I do have a concern. This is a significant increase. It's not just a small increase.
Right.
It's significant.
Right.
So I remember our conversation we had a couple of meetings ago about, what is owed to us still and has not been paid. So what are your plans for as that continues to rise? What's your response to that, and how will you address it?
I think, that's part of a budget discussion next year. Is we do have to discuss how we're going to be
we do.
covering the
And-
loss.
Because that is concerning.
And actually, I think that Faith
Yeah,
addressed
definitely.
it to some
Yeah,
extent
she did.
by saying that we're going to try to do a better job in getting those that are qualified
Right.
for free and reduced to sign up for it, to fill out the forms on it. And I think it was Faith that had the suggestion that when you register your kids for kindergarten, as well as new kids into the system, that you
Right.
fill out this form.
It's required, because
Right.
it lasts for
Oh, it
4
is.
years, I
Right.
believe, right?
It is.
Because otherwise, the kids are getting it home in their folder the first day of school. I have 3 kids, I have 40 pieces of paper. Unfortunately, parents are overwhelmed. The first week of school is overwhelming for many reasons, but I think if it's something that, in order to register your kid, please let us help you. If you qualify, you won't have to worry about a bill.
I think we do get those kids, though. I really do think that, whoever's out there knows that they're on low income, that kind of thing.
I think
you
there
get
are a
the
lot
bulk
more
of
There are a
it.
lot of kids that I know personally that have balances, or I've paid for their lunches, that their parents just don't care to fill it out.
Right, and some parents, pride-wise,
Right.
don't feel they want to be identified, so they have a lot of pride, and I don't want to, and then what happens is, as we all know, you owe only $5, and then it becomes $25, and now you're in a bigger hole.
Well, the end of the year, it's cumulative.
Exactly,
They
so
can't keep
it's
up with it.
trying to work with families right off, and we talked to Paul about that, monitoring right off, somebody's starting to get in a deficit, we need to bring those families in, rather than it gets to a point of no return. So,
We're not doing this lightly.
no, gosh, no.
We've talked about it, we've thought about it,
Yeah.
and we feel that it's a business decision to do this. We still will feed the kids, no matter what, the kids will be fed
Right.
on it. So, but in order to make a business decision to keep the hot lunch. Right.
For our taxpayers, that's $50,000.
It is, it's a lot of money.
That's a
Would
lot
you-
of money.
Would you be reporting back on that within the first quarter, or, for us to know how it's going?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
We'll
It's all
definitely be
on your
watching that line.
financials, Isn't it?
Right.
Isn't the food service listed under the financials?
It's listed on the financial, but there's not really enough detail on that report.
So we
to
could
give you
add
a
a
true
little bit.
I
update,
think the
but
sooner
we will
we
do
find
that.
out how it's going as school begins, the better we'll
Yeah.
be off, and,
No, that's a
But
good,
just to reinforce what Katie said, this is going to be a budget discussion because with the new food shaming laws, what is going to happen to those balances? And will the general fund have to make that whole? So
Pick up
this
another
discussion
bill.
is going to be ongoing.
I know, that's what I'm concerned about, yeah, thanks.
Anybody else have any questions on this? Pat?
Well, I do, but I think it's more important down the lane. I'm not going to ask it.
Okay.
It's a nitty-gritty question.
All right, so I think that that's it, Tom.
I assume from the report that it doesn't look like we're in danger.
We haven't been audited, Tom.
I know we haven't been audited.
don't
but
know yet
the
if we're in
current
danger.
books
right.
We're okay.
suggest that we're all right.
We always have a
We're
balanced
about
budget.
800,000 under expended at this unaudited moment.
Which
in our
meeting do
general
they
fund.
need to vote to move?
If we've got a.
So right now, I'm looking at doing the second meeting in September.
Okay, so
The
second
auditors are
meeting-
coming next week.
Yeah.
And so by then, we should have a good handle on whether any adjustments are needed. And so the goal is to only do it once, and so we're looking at, as I've mentioned multiple times, special ed and system administration would be the two where we'll need a transfer.
Thank you.
Very good. All right, committee reports. We've had the finance, city council.
No, we
Elfrida.
need a vote.
We need a vote. Oh, excuse me.
There is a vote.
Yeah, we do need a vote, sorry. I'd already
Vote on the
put paper.
financials.
Oh, financials.
Yeah, I need a motion to approve the financial report as presented.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor? Very good, thank you. Now I'll move on to committee reports, which we can jump. Elfrida.
Okay, quickly, I'll go through 6 items. City council report, and the first thing is that we've had our strategic plan meeting on the first meeting on that, and we had our first reading, and we know that there will be some adjustments, corrections, surface features need to be corrected on there, but this is a 35-page, for people who are looking, 35-page document. A lot of work went into it, and a lot of us here around have worked on that, and it will be workshopped in more detail by the city council down the road, and a lot of thanks went around for this joint effort, and if you look on pages 4 and 5 and 18 and 19, you will see all of the individuals who were involved. There were 24 strategies that were presented by the subcommittees, and they merged them to make them reasonable and merged them into 11 final recommendations, which you'll find on page 7. A second report is that we continue to celebrate Auburn's 150th anniversary. And again, if anybody wants to find out what's happening, there are many categories. Just go to auburn150.com. And you'll see reports and happenings regarding the bells of St. Louis, the bricks, how you can buy a brick, the events going on, Healthy Auburn, historic walking tours, and organizations who have funded, and they're called founding partners. And we've been very, very lucky to have partners who have significantly donated for the events going on. And there are many volunteer opportunities. So if you go to that, you can scroll to each one of those categories. A third report is the Healthy Auburn Month is coming up for September 2019, this September coming around, and has to do with walking our neighborhoods. So each of the wards, there will be some dates set aside, September 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th at 10 in the morning. I don't even know what days those are, but it's called Walking the Ward Series. So in other words, we want to be able to have people walk within their ward and see, notice certain things, see if there are any needs, what we can do to improve, what they like, what they would suggest. So that's an effort from Healthy Auburn. Fourth report would be that the city manager was authorized to execute a collective bargaining agreement with MSEA-SEIU, which is the police, and then the other, which is the fire, IAFFA, Local 797. So things are getting started on that. The fifth report is we have confirmed 13 additional parking places, spaces for the library. We did it at a cost. I mean, the Pacific Railway, we could have had it, but what happened was the people who built the Troy Street were one step ahead of us, and they got all of these parking places, so we negotiated with them. So for $65,000 and a 99-year contract, we have 13 additional parking spaces. And so what's going to happen is the library personnel will take up those spaces simply because we know that we'll have a hard time holding on to them if we don't make it be that the staff will be the ones who park there, so that around the regular places where we park around the library, at least we know we'll have different individuals parking there. There were many appointments at our last meeting 2 nights ago. We appointed 11 citizens to 5 different committees, and if you want to take a look at that, the minutes will be coming out, but it was lengthy. Our next meeting is going to be September 9th. 5:30 will be a workshop, and 7 o'clock will be a regular meeting. And later on, I want to, I have a request later on, but this is just my report for this. Okay.
Very good. Bonnie?
The bells.
The bells?
The bells of St. Louis?
Yes.
So what happens if there's not enough money raised? What happens to the project? What happens to that money?
The project is well underway. We have donors who are matching monies right now. So we have the bricks, but we also have just regular donations, and we have an initiative going on right now. We just approved yesterday of the format that we're going to pass around. Each one of us who are on the committee are going to go around and visit individual businesses, and we're going to ask for donations, and for every donation, there's matches from the city. So hopefully that will defray it, because I know we're not going up too fast right now. I think we're at, was it $10,000?
So matches from the city. So if I give $5,000, the city is going to match the $5,000?
Up to a certain point, and I can't tell you what the number is.
Okay, but is that coming from our taxpayers' money? Where is that money coming from to match it?
It's coming from donations we received from the founders that I mentioned a little while ago.
Okay, and then $65,000 for the 13 or 11 parking.
13 parking places
That's
for
once a year.
$99.
That's it, once, right? Not every year?
One time. It's a one-time thing, and it's for 99 years, no matter who purchases that building, which might happen. I mean, we don't know. But, let's say somebody else sells it to someone else. That is a contract that we sealed and delivered. So whoever purchases, if there is another purchaser or owner of that Torrey Street project, they will have to abide by that.
So where can the public get a copy of the strategic plan?
Oh, they're doing a kickoff.
We're doing a kickoff.
Yes, I know that.
Right,
Fine.
right. And it's not complete. We do have to make some adjustments and corrections and stuff. But if they want to have a strategic plan right now, I would call the manager's office, and I would ask them to mail one or pick it up if you want to.
Is there one online? Is it online yet or not?
Not that I know of, not.
I'm going to say
yeah.
they're going to wait till the kickoff probably to
Yeah.
publish.
The idea is to be able to have the big thing.
I
The big
understand
thing
that.
and have some available. And we're still looking for more input, looking at how this is all worked out. Because I was surprised, frankly, that some of the dots, we have the dot activity. We put the
remember
dots,
that.
as you know, that we've done. But what rose to the top was surprising that some of the other ones that did not rise to the top, I would have thought would have been. So we have to look at that. This will have to be approved by the city council, whatever we accept, or tweak, so that this is not like a done deal yet. But we have taken into account all of the input from everybody, and we'll have to see what's the most important thing to take up right now water right now is the most important.
But that didn't fall to the top. That wasn't.
No, it did not.
It was not
That's
on the
what I'm
top of
saying.
that. So that was not the citizens' top on it.
That's what I'm saying, and now we have the issue, the blooms are happening again and again. We need to protect and preserve our water, so that's going to end up being something that the city, I can tell you that the city, I know I will make rise to the top, because we have to secure that.
Right. And this is a good, in my family, in my household, we are very familiar with the comprehensive plan. My husband has worked on all of them for the last many years on it. So what we discussed in my household is this is a good step. This strategic is a very good step to the comprehensive. So it's got a lot of the work already done for it.
Right.
It was a good job.
We were having everybody did a fabulous job. I mean, we all know, anybody who's participated in that knows the amount of hours and the amount of time. But we had really great leadership, and then that's why I mentioned the pages instead of listing off names. Go to the pages to see who was instrumental in leading this. And the one person pops right up to me is Phil Crowell, who really did the lion's share of organizing all of this and staying on top of this. And it was very empowering for everybody, and it's interesting to see where people's perspectives were in terms of what they'd like to see. So it's nice that we can all contribute together and say, okay, this is where we're headed. It falls into the which is yet to happen. For the next 10 years will be the 10-year comprehensive plan. This is a 5-year, but this can be assessed every single year. So it's a blueprint, as was called a blueprint.
And while you're thanking everybody, let's not forget to thank Liz Allen and Jody, because they were
they were definitely praised highly
It
the other
couldn't have
night.
happened without them.
I mean, they were so impressed with our staff, our
They
city
were good.
staff, and just unbelievable. Yep, so it was a very positive project, and we thought it would never end, but we'll just be looking at our agendas to see when we will be discussing this, because we are going to hold some workshops, not just one, because it'll take a long time. So we'll have follow-up workshops.
Very good, thank you. Pat, do you have any committee updates?
Yes, I have a report from the Share Center.
Yes.
They ended the year in the black. They have tons of more memberships coming in, new schools and daycares joining. They have enough money available next year to maybe hire an assistant. They try to use volunteers, but they really, I think Lisa's going to need an assistant. I'm not going to go through everything, but one of the biggest deal, I think, that I heard about at the meeting was the Martell School in Lewiston. The Lewiston School Department and the City of Lewiston have approved the Share Center using the first floor wing for all of their furniture and those large donations. And they left all of their furniture there that was left over, and that's all there for Share Center to disperse. She has some long-range plans for the building. I'm not going to publicize them right now. I think she's been in contact with Adam. Who knows what's going to happen, but it's exciting for Share Center. Right now, all she has to do is get the money for the heat and the electricity for that building. So we're kind of hoping that works out. They're still pursuing donations from Bates and Bowdoin College. Neither one of the colleges has a lot of warehousing space, and so anytime that they have anything that they're dispensing, a lot of them just take it to the dump. So she's working really hard to get that into the Share Center stuff. And as I said last time, the clean sweep at Bates College kept 12 tons of items out of the landfill, and they raised $33,000, and each nonprofit that works on it gets a percentage of that. So the Share Center earned quite a bit of money from that. They didn't get the whole amount. And they have been nominated, the Share Center has been nominated by WCSH 6 for their Who Care Award.
Oh, awesome.
Nice.
So I think that's really cool, Lisa. And the people on the board, minus me, they do a tremendous amount of work moving stuff, and they work really, really hard. and it's a benefit to all the schools in the area. So it's pretty awesome.
That is awesome.
Very nice.
Great job.
Very good. Let's see. Faith? There. The new EL Building Committee did have a meeting last week, and we had an update from various subcommittees. Now that the building project has been approved, the subcommittees can actually delve into particulars and get down to the real nitty-gritty and take a look at what the recommendation is going to be for the architects to move forward with the design. But I thought it might be informative, not only for the committee, but also for the public, to hear a little more about what the athletic facility subcommittee has discussed and some of the changes that they have brought from what was originally presented. And Scott is here to perhaps share some of that with us.
Sure. I wish I had brought those notes. I was compiling them today. It's really funny you bring it up. So our subcommittee met, all the subcommittees met last Tuesday, and it was good because through this process, it's all been concept and large, and people had wanted to get to the weeds, and we had to say, hold off, these are concepts, we gotta do all of these large-scale things. And so now it's the fun stuff, you have a chance to get into the weeds, and so we literally got into the weeds on the athletic side of where we have the concept of where the fields are gonna be positioned, but now we really needed to dive in and make sure that each one of those sport fields was able to support what its intended purpose was. So like the big conversation for us out of the gate was, where's the javelin throwing area gonna be? And you can make that look good on paper, but does it consider all the factors that you need as far as the amount of space, spectators being able to do that, movement from one field to the other? And that was real important to have, because at one point in time they thought, oh, you could do the javelin throw over on the softball or baseball field. Well, there's a challenge with that, because those are both sports are happening in the springtime. So that's what I'm saying. We got into the weeds and started talking about that. And we were able to locate that. We had a lot of discussion on where buildings would be located for the property to hold the equipment that would need to support taking care of the fields, as well as sports storage. And so we had some people at the table who could speak to what was the equipment that needed to be stored for athletics, whether it was the hurdles, or we're talking about the equipment for baseball and softball. And we talked about some models of creating storage at the end of dugouts, on top of dugouts, where some press boxes would go. And those were good because our architects are incredibly responsive, and so they needed that feedback of what the group was wishing. And then we started into the conversation of the concession stands, and they were able to come forth with some models of some other schools and what it contained and what it didn't contain, and their square footage, and it gave us some ideas of what we really wanted to be talking about. Unfortunately, through the summer, lots of people are on vacation, so some of the people who could give some really deep input of what a grill looked like and what it didn't look like, and the model that Harriman's had was the footprint of what we currently have at Walton, without considering that the grill is outside. So that all had to be part of the conversation. So that was really important feedback for Harriman's to get, and important feedback for the rest of the group, and some nice ahas. Another big one had to do with the seating capacity at Walton. If you get asked, currently it sits at 1,700, and they had us budgeted. They had us allocated for significantly more than that, and so we had said we're not looking for significantly more. We tried to balance of what's real important for the community on a season basis, and what do we need in order, if we're going to talk about hosting regional and state events, what does that look like? So that was a real important conversation, then led us inside the building. We just did a count today. We're about just over 1,300 seated capacity in the gym, to try to make sure that the same seating capacity was there. That was something that came from the community that they wanted. So we were able to get that feedback back to Harriman's, so that influenced their design, which then led us to the placement of the concession stand inside, and balancing that out with the needs of sports, with the needs of the auditorium, and some deeper understanding of why it was located where it was and what the options were for what we wanted to do. And so we have some questions that we were able to resolve, and then we created some more questions for our next meeting, and talked about some other people that we need to be at the table. There's always the conversation of, is the city involved in that? Jeremy Gatcomb was involved with us because a lot of those conversations are going on of how would the city be able to participate utilizing those fields, and what's that look like? And then we talked about what kind of schedules that looks like, and the models that we've seen from Portland, Lewiston, Scarborough, of how fields get scheduled, but mostly how do we organize them and the safety and security around the area. It was a lot, but
That
again,
was all done in 1 hour, by the way.
Yeah.
So it was quick.
they're a good group, and just, I don't want to speak for the other group, but the Performing Arts Center, I was pleased, like, they are getting themselves into some good weeds, and they have some visits that they are setting up to go look at some different auditoriums of similar size and smaller size to try to glean some of the pieces that lessons learned from other people, which was the same for us. There are lessons to be learned.
So that is ongoing, and we have next meeting next month to continue that. The objective is to have the design done by the end of this year so that they can go out to bid, have the bid documents produced for next spring, and the bids available in the fall, or returned in the fall. I think that's correct, yeah.
And then breaking
And so
ground
break ground,
before January 1st.
right, hopefully break.
We
ground.
shaped some timelines of when Harriman's would have more opportunities in the process to come back to get into some of those weeds with the staff at the building. We had a couple paths that we were going to do, a couple dates, so we started to nail that down. I spoke to some teachers at your request to get them involved in how does the building become a teaching tool in and of itself. They were excited about that.
Great.
So we're going to break ground in 2020, January 2020?
Not
December.
2020, it's
21?
2021.
No, December 2020.
No, December 2020, yeah.
Yeah, December 20.
2020.
December 2020, putting a shovel in the ground.
Yes, we hope,
Okay.
if it's not frozen. All right. I don't believe any other committees have met. Not seeing any. All right, our next meeting is September.
Yeah, transportation.
Yes, Dan.
Yeah, we met today, just
Okay.
talked about policy, reviewed the policies and concerns and questions, and I think that was Brian's first meeting. And just-
Dan, take your mic.
Yep.
I know.
Yeah, we just met, concerns and reviewed policies, just to see what, if we had any concerns, and nothing really pressing at this point, so. No, we were just reviewing, I think it was
reviewed.
Brian's first time.
Current busing and transportation policies. Just to bring Brian up to date.
Okay, did we have a new policy, though? We left it as it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, we reviewed it and it remained. There will be a policy coming about transportation around our procedure for bus accidents, but that's still.
That's it.
It's quiet because the bus routes haven't been published yet.
Yeah. So
So-
what we're saying is that we often have some concerns about kids walking from daycares. So the parents need to realize where your kid is, where the daycare is for your kiddos, and what the structure of our policy is, to walk or to ride, right? So we need to be.
That's all stayed the same. There's been no change.
Okay, so everybody that has a daycare that is in a distance, or they think it's close, needs to realize that it may not be that way.
Check with their daycare to find out what the
Yes,
the
check with your
transportation will be,
daycare.
whether they're walkers or whether they'll be on a bus.
Right.
I think is what you're saying, Bonnie?
Yes, that's,
Okay.
trying to be polite.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, our next meetings are September 4th. We then have executive session on the 11th and regular meeting on the 18th. No need-
I have one more item
Yes.
that I wanted to share with everybody, and it's going to take just a couple minutes, and please take it in the personal vein that it's intended. And it has to do with my request. I have a request for an executive session to be scheduled for September 4th with the school committee for purposes of discussing personnel. And the concerns that support my reason for requesting executive session follows. I ask that we extend the deadline date to submit the school committee's written superintendent's evaluation from September 6th to a later date. What concerns me is that the superintendent's contract expires June 2020, and unlike in the past, we now have a number of contenders for the school committee for the November 2019 elections, which leads me to question why we are in such a rush to evaluate our superintendent at a far earlier time frame. Overall, my overarching objection is that the lack of process for this superintendent's review. That's what's concerning me right now. And here are my substantiated reasons. I have 5. One is that the school committee is not given the opportunity to vote on whether the majority of members were in favor of shortening the evaluation time period before June 2020 contract due date. This point was explained by legal counsel that we all heard, that clearly the school committee must vote on this change. So my recollection was that the committee chair made a statement that the evaluation would occur at an earlier date, seeking no input nor a vote from the school committee members. So that was really the salient point right there. The second one is that the school committee received U.S. mail from the school committee chair posted August 13th. The contents of this mailing were a letter from the committee chair indicating we were undertaking the superintendent's annual performance evaluation. There was no invitation to gather collectively to hold thoughtful, mindful discussion on the evaluation process. There was no opportunity to seek clarification, ask questions, make suggestions, and generally be part of the process.
Excuse me, just, I'm sorry to interrupt for a moment, but have you read the policies on the evaluation?
Yes, I have.
And they specify that there will be the review.
I know there will be, but what I'm talking about is that we collectively haven't sat down together to discuss what this process is all about. We have, further down here, we have many newcomers to this board. We've never done this collectively as a group. So what I'm looking for is collective discussion, looking at what we have right now, although I think it's outdated, what we have for a policy, the policies that were included, they are pretty old. We do need to change those, and I thought that also it would be good for us to discuss, this is a time that maybe we might want to start revising it. We may not want to do it right now, but get started on that. So there are decisions that, as a group, we're policy makers. We are a school committee, and we're policy makers. And so I'm looking at all of this. This definitely relates to everything that we're here for. And I do think that to send us, a letter that says we're going to do this X, Y, and Z with absolutely no direction other than like sending us the policies, it is confusing I can understand it, but it is confusing to those of us who are brand new. And this is something that, and I've called a number of school committees and spoken with their chairs, and they all do it collectively. They all meet together. They all decide what they're going to do. They all decide, are the policies and procedures current? Are they okay? Well, we'll go with those, or are we going to change it? I'm involved in 2 other evaluations right now in the work that I'm doing, and this is what we're doing in those venues. We should be doing the same thing here. I feel that we need to involve all of us before we go, push forward.
You're suggesting a policy change, am I correct?
I'm suggesting that, well, number one, the policies are older, much older than they need to be. That's one of them. The other one is to sit down and discuss as a group of people what the process is going to be, to explain, the 5 strengths, the 5 weaknesses, that kind of thing. Those are just 2 pages. Evaluating an administrator is much deeper than that. So I want to make sure that we do it correctly, and we don't even have the goals that were established last time around. We don't know what those goals are. Those were not included. As it says in the policy, it's supposed to be goals and objectives that was established between superintendent and the previous council. I don't know what those are. I didn't receive them. So, I'm just talking about improving the process of how we do this.
And I'm back to we're following the policy, that exists now, you are suggesting that we should be reviewing that policy and perhaps changing it.
Reviewing it as a group to say, is this,
Right.
are we going to go with it? And if we're going to go with it, fine, but we all have to agree that we're going to do that.
It would have to come before the policy committee first. Have to be presented to the policy committee.
If we want to
can
make
bring
a
it back.
change,
That wants to make
yes, if
changes,
we want to
that's
make a
correct.
change,
So
right.
that's the process. At this point, the process is instigated as the policies are written.
Right.
So we are following policy.
Yes, we are following the policy in terms of the policy is there, but what I'm talking about is the process with which we're doing this. We really do need to sit down as a group and discuss evaluation of an administrator, especially our superintendent, is really, really important, as we all know, very, very important. But to receive it in the mail and say, okay, do this, put 5 strengths, 5 weaknesses, and get it back to me, that's not what I call a good evaluation process.
That's getting information. We will then have the
To
meeting
discuss.
where we will all have that opportunity to discuss it, which is
That's the
stated in the
first piece.
policy.
But it begins one step sooner. It begins one step sooner, that we get together and discuss and say, okay, we're going to evaluate the superintendent, and the due date is June 2020, and we talk about, okay, it's down the road. Are we going to do it sooner, or are we going to do it a little bit later? We haven't even talked about
We
that.
have an obligation to report to the state by December 30th that we have a superintendent under
We did
contract.
that last year in December.
And you have to do it every year.
Right, we did it last year, and we didn't evaluate the superintendent in order to do that. We could easily say, yes, we have a superintendent in December, we will have one in December, even if we didn't evaluate that superintendent before December. You know what I'm saying?
No, you have to be under contract the year before your contract expires.
Expires. So
You don't have until June 30th to
our
put
obligation is the end
somebody
of
on.
December.
Because if you have to give the superintendent opportunity, that's all.
Yeah, we're obligated
I
December.
shouldn't be talking about it.
So can I just clarify the concern supporting your reason? So are you trying to have whoever gets voted on the board approve the contract? Is that ultimately what you think is the right thing to do?
I think that is a disadvantage to those who are coming on board
So
if they don't have an opportunity to have input in it, if the deadline, the due date is after they're elected.
So you're saying you want a group of, if we get a completely new board, you want a group of people to work with Katie 12 meetings when we're dealing with other issues to decide whether or not we should renew our contract instead of having people that have been working with her 2 years, 4 years, 20 years? That doesn't make sense. To have a new board that's only been sitting on for 6 months, I know my first 6 months, I was trying to figure out what abbreviations meant, what policies were. To put that in the hands of people that have only been working with her for 6 months is ludicrous. That's very unprofessional. It's not the best thing for our students. If that's ultimately what you're trying to get through this, and that's what I truly believe that's the intent of this because of everything that's going on, that if you sit down and think of it, that does not make sense, Alfreda.
Well, one of the things that happens is that I know, for example, our city manager, I mean, we are behind schedule with, the evaluations because the previous city council did not do what they were supposed to do in the timeline they were supposed to. But nothing happens as a result of it. He still gets evaluated. We still send it in. We get to know him better because more time has gone on. So as a new member of the city council, I got to know who he is, I get to know who he is, so I get to evaluate him. It's later than it's supposed to be, but there's nothing that happens because you're later than you're supposed to be, is what I'm saying.
But why would you want a group of people that have only worked with Katie for 6 months to decide over a group that have worked with her for 2 years and have gone through processes, gone through decisions, gone through hard times, good times? That I guess if you can explain that further, that would make more sense to me, but that doesn't make sense.
We've worked with her, the newcomers have worked with her for a year and a half. We're not at 2 years yet. We're
But a year and a half is more than 6 months.
So what I'm saying is, that's a little piece of it. The other piece of it, to me, though, is the process. I just feel that, I know that this has been just handed to us, and we haven't had a chance to just have a discussion. I can tell you what we've done in other situations, in the other 2 groups, especially with city. We
I
got
think,
together as a group.
Elfrida, we have a policy of which is approved by this board. We are following that policy.
The policy.
I think your request is to review that policy.
Yes.
All right, so we have an opportunity to do that. You can put that before the policy subcommittee, and the subcommittee can take a look at it, and then bring a suggestion back to the board,
Oh, yeah, but that's.
which is the process of a democratic
But it also says that we all collectively do this together. So far, this has not been a collective activity.
But you
It's
will
been
be.
basically coming from you as, the chair. You send this out, this is what's going to happen, you're going to do this,
Which
you're going
is
to.
following policy.
The
And then we'll
policy does
discuss it
have that.
collaboratively after we all
And
fill out our
We
forms.
get the data, we get the information, and we discuss it.
The policy has several pieces of supporting evidence to it. So you have in the policy also the tool that I'm assuming is what you received.
Yeah.
You have the process of collecting the data. That's what that tool is designed for, to collect the data individually. And then in the procedure, that is what frames the discussion.
Right.
And it also has, and I just want to make one clarifying point with it, it has a timeline for this procedure. And the timeline begins at the beginning of September, when all of this is going out. So you're right on your timeline
Right.
there. And the end is in December. So that is, I think that's what you're saying, Tom, right now, that the policy is being, it's not just the
Adhered to.
general policy,
Right.
but now the supportive evidence that's in policy as well is being followed.
Right.
So you're saying you might want to review that.
I understand that. But there are still two missing elements. One, if we're beginning now, we're beginning early, we should not be told.
Not beginning
Not
early.
beginning early.
It's-
You're right on time.
We're right on time. I mean, why are you saying early? I mean, I'm trying to understand, Elfrida,
Well, I'm going by the June 2020 date, is what I was going.
but the June 2020 date is not pertinent to our policy when we need to review it, and we have to have a decision by December 30th of this year, not
So,
next year.
right, so we're starting right now in August.
And I'm getting the information
We
in
have 4 months-
September.
we have
I'm
4
getting the
months to go.
information in September per the policy.
Says it's- I
It
can
says
give you
that we're to begin then. I'm at a loss, other than,
I still think it's a little early, it's a little early. I don't mean to do it after, after elections, that's not what I'm talking about. But we have 4 months to go here. And now, to receive this in the mail and to have, no directions. I mean, I know the directions say five areas of constraints, 5 areas of, strength, but though, it's not objective, it's not
it's
objective.
not objective?
Oh, I don't think it's objective.
I agree that it would have been nice to sit down and discuss process instead of getting a written directive.
We're going to,
Actually, we did discuss
chair,
this.
Tom.
It was, you weren't here, Bob, and Elfrida, I believe you were on vacation when Tom said this is the process that will
You
begin.
had a discussion when we were not here, when the only time I've missed a meeting. in the
Was
whole
when you
time.
were on vacation.
Right, this is the only time I've been gone. I didn't see that in the agenda. I did not see that in the
No.
agenda.
No,
All I
we didn't
did
have a
was inform the
discussion.
committee that we
Just
would
told
be
us.
That's what I'm
beginning it,
saying.
and they would be getting
there was no discussion.
survey. I mean,
Right.
we are doing what we have done in the past. I am following policy. If we would like to review the policy, we may do that.
I've already reviewed the policy, I know what
But-
it is.
That's where we are. So
So if you did have a discussion while we were gone, it would have been nice had you waited.
No,
It
wasn't a
it wasn't discussion.
it was information, just that
Right.
we were going to begin the process.
Statement.
That's all it was.
Right.
So it was on notice. People were told
Okay.
this was going to happen.
Okay, I'm just,
But Elfrida, just to clarify, because there's some undertones here. Tom Kendall is the chair of the board. If you were the chair of the board, you would sent out the information. He's not sending out the information because he's sending out the information. He sends out the information to the board and to administrators. All that feedback's coming in, and then you're meeting in September, and during that executive session, Elfrida, You can bring up your concerns and
Right.
talk to the group about what more you want.
Right, right. I know.
That's, I'm just saying, it's,
Right.
the end game is not one meeting if you
It
choose to
still
have
would
more.
have been a very good step to take, to have a discussion, to just have a short little executive committee, session, talking about this in executive session, saying, okay, this is what we're going to do, are you all okay with it? That did not happen. That did not happen.
It's not policy.
No,
What can I say? We are following what the board has directed us to do. And you're asking for something different. That's fine and good. And,
one of the things that concerns me is that we have very, very little discussion as a school committee. Things come to us, they already seem to be done, we just vote yes or no, and we don't have opportunities to discuss and process. So this is, to me, the most important item that we need to process. And I'm just saying that
that's why we'll be taking a few months to achieve that goal. And we're beginning now,
and
because it is an important process.
And when I just feel that this tool is really archaic, and it's nothing that, we don't have the objectives. Do we have objectives given to us? Do you have your objectives?
The goals and objectives, you can go back to the minutes actually not minutes, but they were presented in the executive session last January.
We went over that, the goals that the school committee has set are the goals we're working on, and that's my job, is to make sure your goals are being
Right.
put forward. That's what we discussed last time, is everything, everything we're working on.
Yeah.
There's no, everything we do at presentations, everything that's in your goals, that's what we're working on.
Your goals are.
Policy
Yeah.
states that the goals are put together by the superintendent in conjunction with the school committee. So
We did.
that should have been sent to us as well, as what you sent to us in the package. I go on goals. If I'm looking and I'm trying to assess someone's, success in achieving the goals, if I don't have the goals before me that were established, what am I going to go on?
So what you're saying is you would like the presentation in September when I go over my goals and evaluation, then you will fill out the form. That's what you're saying.
Whatever you had that you
You're
did,
saying you're not prepared to fill out the form now until
No.
you hear executive session.
right, if I
That's what
got
you're
that
saying.
piece.
That's fine.
if I got
Others may
that
feel
piece-
they can, and others
Right.
may need to wait.
Actually, Tom, I thought that the questionnaire, I struggled with the questionnaire, but as I read through the packet, the last 2 pages were very informative, and I made all kinds of remarks on those last 2 pages that I intend to share at the executive session. So,
Are you talking about the second policy?
the second policy,
Are you talking about the second policy that was included in our mailing?
I don't have it with me. Pat, do you have yours with you?
do.
No, it's on the dining room table, and
Yeah, mine is too.
I haven't even looked at it, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
So the second part, there were 2 pages, on the last 2 pages, and I found that those were very interesting, very good, and I made all kinds of goods and bads remarks on it, and that I intend to share with the chair.
But that was, if it's that policy, that's the 1995 policy. It's-
I don't care when it was. It's the policy that's on the books.
2002?
No, the 2002 policy is
Nobody's saying
the
it's not.
procedures. The 1995 is the job description.
Oh,
Very good.
I'm sorry, I'm not on the job description, I'm on the
Yeah,
the
well, there
evaluation.
were two policies that we were given. One was the evaluation procedure.
Well, there's an evaluation policy as well, that's what I was referring to, the 2002.
Yeah, the 2002 is the policy for the
Evaluation.
procedure for
No,
evaluation.
And the
All right,
policy for evaluation, just so that I'm clear, it's the policy and the procedure.
Right, policy, yeah. But the second, you
call
know,
for-
and I quoted that in this note here, the CB-R, that's a job description. That's a job description.
Right.
That's different
No,
than.
nobody's saying it should be updated, shouldn't be updated,
Yeah,
Alfreda.
but-
Nobody's saying
But it's
that.
different than goals and objectives.
Yes,
You know what I'm
I
talking
do
about?
know what you're
When
talking
you do
about.
that with your administrators and
Absolutely.
teachers, you're looking at the goals.
That's what you're going to hear when you see me, yes.
Yep.
Right.
Yep, that's exactly
So
it. Nobody's saying.
if we can see
Correct.
those,
Absolutely.
and
Very good.
so.
Can
with
I
that-
make one comment?
Sure.
I heard tonight we talked about this website niche, which somehow evaluated Auburn very poorly and very subjectively. I'm wondering, is there any credible sites that evaluate Auburn compared to other districts that we could go over and see how Auburn is doing test scores and achievements of students compared to other districts? I think that would be very important when evaluating our superintendent in the future, rather than relying on some little niche thing that comes out of the woodwork. It's about probably as truthful as Donald Trump. Today was a god.
Keep politics out of it, Bob.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Was that a second, Bob?
Yep.
Very good. All those in favor? Declare us adjourned. Thank you.